Welcome to Scaling with People, your weekly playbook for turning chaos into compounding growth. Each week, we go under the hood with battle-tested experts in all areas of business, from marketing to sales, operation, finance, and people, plus product and leadership, to unpack the plays, numbers, and systems that turn chaos into compounding growth. Learn straight from founders and experts who've done it and continue to do it successfully. There's zero fluff, just moves that you can steal immediately. This podcast is brought to you by Guide to HR, human expertise, AI-powered impact. Welcome, everyone, to today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm Guinevere Curry, your host and founder and CEO to Guide to HR. All right, strap in, founders. This one's a wild ride through scaling and staying sane. What got you here won't get you there, and nobody knows that better than today's guest. On this episode of Scaling with People, we're talking to John Marvin, a powerhouse leader who's guided businesses through the messy middle, those awkward teenager stage, and the oh crap hypergrowth phase, which I hope if you haven't experienced, you will in your near future. So we're unpacking the leadership strategies that actually work at every stage of the journey, because scaling isn't just about growing bigger, it's about growing smarter. So welcome, John. Can't wait to dive into this conversation. But before we do, introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, thank you for having me, Guinevere. I really appreciate it. Look forward to
Absolutely.
the conversation. Um, I just finished a little over 25 years as president and CEO of a large Texas-based regional company where we are in the optometry or eye care space. Company, Texas State Optical, is celebrating its 90th year in business next year. So, over the course of that time, it's had an opportunity to grow big, get smaller, come back, redefine itself, reimagine itself. And that's the only way you frankly get to 90 years is you've got to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And so, but after a great run with them, I decided to resign in earlier this year and have been spending my time now helping businesses and people like are in your audience understand leadership and how to take advantage of the opportunities that come along to catch the wave, so to speak, and to grow and scale up and to work through all of that. So I appreciate the invitation to be here.
Absolutely. And leadership is so important, and your people in general, right? In a business. I mean,
Mhm.
without them, you're not going to be able to scale and grow. Although some companies out there believe that they're going to get to, the 100 million mark AI themselves only, which maybe they'll prove is correct. But until then, we know we need our people, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
when a company starts growing fast, what do you see as the first thing that most leaders get wrong about managing their people as they're growing?
Micromanage them. I think that it starts with the mistake starts when they go to select the people that they bring onto the team, and you need to hire when you're not growing and scaling up in a big way, as if you are growing and scaling up in a big way, meaning you need to make sure you've got the right talent, they've got the capabilities to themselves scaling up and growing personally, and as the business and the demands of the business grow as well. And so, what happens is when things start getting exciting and the business starts coming in a big way, there's a tendency to want to protect it, and you kind of default, many leaders to kind of default back to, well, I can't really trust anybody except myself. And
Mhm.
that is the sure way to stifle that growth that you're experiencing and lose some really talented people along the way, which is the last thing you want to do, is to be out hiring more or replacing people when you are scaling up. So I think micromanaging is probably the biggest mistake most often made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have seen it. Founders who, think, oh, I can do it better, or this is mine. And if you do want it,
Yeah,
like the concept of if you want it done right, do it yourself, right? So
yeah,
if you could hire a little bit earlier, get that person in place, get them to really understand your philosophy, your vision, and then see how they execute on it before it becomes really pivotal for your business, then you have that, you build that trust and you have that there to be able to let them go and execute your vision. But
Yeah,
a lot
instead
of
of
times I
hiring,
would, oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, I know I was going to say, instead of hiring for what you are, hire for where you want to go, and look for the talent you're going to need when the business grows. Part of that is the faith of the founder or the owner or the operator, the faith that's required to see a vision for a future.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that also is missing. And it's, if you sit down and ask some business, especially a smaller business, and say, what is your vision for the company and the plan? It's like, well, we just want to do more this year than we did last year.
Yeah.
And that is not a vision or a plan.
No, it's not. And you really do. A lot of times I see it coming into customers that they don't have a structure in place of, if we get this type of customer or, product design or whatever you're selling, right? If you get this sales invoice, this agreement executed, and now you need to do this work, what does that mean on the back end? So understanding the type of product or the type of services that you're selling out there and what you need on the back end to produce, and then be able to have that fluctuation up and down, because most sales timeline is not in 2 hours. You don't like meet someone and then you sign a contract with them right then and there, right? So you have some time to build a model that you understand, hey, if we get this type of work in, these are the people we need. And also then what type of work are you going after? And then you could start planning things a bit better.
And depending on the kind of business and the size of it, especially if someone's a new founder just starting a new business and it's about a year and a half to 2 years old, those businesses are typically built around personality of
Oh
the
yeah.
founder.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a reluctance to delegate the authority. There's never a reluctance to delegate responsibility, but there's always often, not always, but oftentimes a reluctance to delegate the authority that needed to make sure that they can accomplish the responsibility. And so uh, it's just, and that's a growing thing. That's a personal growth on the founder's part that has to happen. And that has to be intentional. In the same way you're working to grow your business, you have to intentionally, there has to be an intentional effort to grow personally so that you grow into, you'll never have a business larger than your own personal growth is. And so
Mm.
I think that that's very important too. And oftentimes that's overlooked.
Yeah, that is true. Because there's times where, I come in and I talk to a founder, typically around the Series C, maybe D area, where I'm like, yeah, you got here because of these people, but those people are not going to be what takes you to the next phase. And sometimes that eventually turns to the founder, right? Because there may not be,
Mhm.
this might be the first company they've run, and they might not know how to run a company at 500, 1,000 employees, 100 million, 500 million. And if
Right.
they don't grow, then they gotta go, just like any other employee, unfortunately. And that's a really hard thought. So I love that you called that out, because being open-minded and growing and learning is the only way you're going to have your business be successful.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So on we're talking about like fast growing or maybe unfortunately, some turbulence. How do you personally stay grounded and still be an effective leader when the business hits turbulence, or hopefully the opposite, it takes off faster than expected?
Well, I'm a believer that you have to manage your imagination. And hear me out on this.
Yeah.
Because as soon as the business starts hitting challenges and rough water, we tend to, if you're the owner of the business, the founder of the business, and 4 to 5 years in, you've enjoyed good growth up until that point, but then all of a sudden, let's say things out of your control, the economy, or heaven forbid, a pandemic should occur, or something of this
Mhm.
nature comes along. Oftentimes, people's natural reaction to that is to let their imagination create all of the scary things in their head. And that creates fear and worry and anxiety. And when that overtakes somebody, you can't make good decisions because then you start making those decisions from a context of defense. And you can't get through rough water by playing small ball or being defensive. You've got to
Mhm.
lean into it and work through it with a unwavering belief that you will get through this. I will accomplish this. I'll go over it, I'll go under it, I'll go around it, I'll figure this out. So I will go through it. And that's within the control of the individual to be able to control your thought, your imagination, and so forth. Not only is it critical for you, but you've got a team of people that are looking to you. And the last thing they want to see when things get choppy is that they look to their leader and their leader's freaking out and getting
Yeah.
scared and worried and so forth. And so what do? They say, well, maybe I need to go find a different job. And
Yep.
those are the very people you need to help you lean in and work through that time. So I think one of the ways you stay grounded is you control your thoughts.
Hmm.
And what I do to help do that is I plan every morning time that is just for me and my own reflection, and I think through, and I lean on mentors and authors that I've turned to at time to for my own personal development. But and then I'm a person of faith, and so I spend time in prayer and I turn to scripture, and those things give me confidence that I can work through whatever challenge comes along.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes it didn't always turn out exactly the way you thought it was going to, but
Rarely ever does, actually,
it
right?
rarely ever does. But in every part of one of those experiences, I look back months, 6 months, or a year later and realize why that was so important
Mm,
because of the growth that it caused. And
yeah.
had that not happened, it wouldn't have made the company or myself as strong as I was. So it's
Yeah.
a combination of controlling thoughts, but largely centers around that morning reflection time that I plan. It's on my calendar every morning. So
Nice.
it's an
Well, yeah,
important
and
part.
it also could be like, you look back and you go, oh, because of that turbulence, that hardship, we ended up pivoting and maybe offering a different type of product or different type of
Sure.
services, or maybe recognize that we weren't targeting the right audience and we found out it was actually a different audience that we need to go after. And it could be a pivotal moment where you take that hardship, you learn from it, you pivot, and now you're in a better place than you would have ever gotten yourself to without going through that.
That's right. That's right. That's why I mean, you look back and you go, man, that turns out that was one of the best things that ever happened.
Yeah.
And then the thing that puzzles me, and I've had these experiences, I'm sure you
Oh, yeah.
and people in your audience have as well. What
Hmm.
puzzles me is the next time we come across a challenge, and we will, our knee-jerk reaction is to think, oh my gosh, the sky's falling again,
Yeah.
without realizing that, remember the last time this happened? It turned out
Hmm.
to be a great thing. And then
Absolutely.
leaning into that. So,
Yeah. Oh, I
um,
love it. I mean, I'm actually dealing with something right now where it's exactly the same thing. And I'm like, okay, I have trust that actually, as hard as this is, I'm going to get through it and I'm going to be coming out on the better for it. And
yeah,
I know that because I experienced it in the past and I have faith as well. And I just know that doesn't mean I'm going to sit back and do nothing. I'm going to still work and push through it. But I have a belief in myself and the things that are I can control that is going to get me through it and be better for it.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, I'd love to kind of pick a little bit of your experience. What's a leadership move that worked brilliantly in your past experience at one stage of growth, but doesn't work, or you tried it again, but it didn't work because the company was at a different area of growth?
Well, I think it has to come down with how well you work with personnel and
Hmm.
your team. One of the things that when we started and our company was relatively small at the time with a smaller team, I could pretty much have everybody on that team kind of report directly to me.
Yeah.
And while it, doesn't didn't really fit into the kind of the general structure of what you learn in management or things like that, because I was such a central part in the formation of the company, everybody that I brought on, I hired personally. And because of that, they all felt like they worked for me. And
Yeah.
as the company grew, I had to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like uh, picking one of your children, I mean, so I had to form a leadership team. I
Mm-hmm.
had to reduce the number of people that would report to me directly. And in doing so, put them in charge of other people that felt like they worked for me directly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a challenge because there had to be a lot of
Yes.
communication, a lot of talk, and a lot of assurance that I'm not diminishing your importance to the company. I'm restructuring so that the company can now move kind of another phase and grow from that. And then I began to divest myself of some of that authority and responsibility, put it into the leadership team. So as each of those departmental areas started to grow, they did the hiring.
Yeah.
And until we got point people that were on the team that I'd never met until they showed up for work.
Yep.
And I wasn't involved in the interviewing or the hiring. And I'd have a department head call me and say, "Do you want to interview this person?" And I said, "No, no, they're working for you. Why would I want to interview them? You now on the same on the same hand, you've got to be responsible for this decision. So
Exactly.
take the
Yeah.
ownership in it." And so that's an example of how we had to adjust and change things as we go along. And, again, it was like one of those things that, gosh, I should have done this like 5 years ago, So
Yeah.
it really was such an improvement to
Mm-hmm.
begin to build. And I think it was not just the workflow. I think it was empowering people with ownership in
Mm-hmm.
particular areas
Yeah.
that began to make things work better and
And
be more
faster.
productive and faster. Decisions
Yeah.
could be made quicker,
Mm-hmm.
and the financial management went better because now each of them had their own budgets that they had to
Yeah.
manage. And by taking it the overall company budget and dividing it up in these departmental areas, then they manage those. And we managed our budget on a monthly basis. So every month we would have a financial meeting and we
Mm-hmm.
sit down and go through budgets, and
Yep.
everybody would have to come back and explain they're either over or under and make the adjustments on a monthly basis. So we never missed a target at the end of the year because it was broken down and managed individually and monthly. So both
Exactly.
of those, yeah.
Yeah. One game at a time will win you the prize at the end of whatever sports analogy you want to toss into that. And I think it's really important to call out. I've seen this happen so many times. It is hard as the founder to make that change. And because you're invested in all the individuals you've brought on and you don't want anyone to like feel left out or that,
Yeah.
you don't want to lose them too. Like there's also that like if I layer them, will they like to leave? And so the communication is really important. My first step that I always recommend founders to take is take out the people out of the equation. Let's just look at a blank screen and let's talk about roles and duties and what roles and duties should be reporting to you and what lower level or what next level roles should be reporting to that level. And let's
Mhm.
talk about it from like just titles and duties. And then we look at the people and who are the people that can be slated into the different boxes. And then we can discuss how to communicate because then it kind of takes out that personality of like, oh, I've known this person, blood, sweat, and tears is the reason why I'm this where I'm at today. If I layer them, they're gonna leave. I don't want them to leave. It takes away that like emotional decision because now you're talking about what does the business need to grow and then who are the people we have that we can slot in there? What are the gaps that we need to hire for? Who are the people left? How do we manage them? Is there another area I can find to keep them, or is
Yeah.
it unfortunately time for them to go? And that is the I think one of the things I see founders struggle the most with in building their business up.
Well, and especially founders who care about people.
Yeah.
I mean, because, and which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, because not everybody is going to be best suited in skills and capability 10 years into the business, depending on its growth curve, as
Yeah.
was needed in the very beginning. And it is a very difficult thing. I personally was fortunate enough that the from the very beginning, because I was starting with such a small group, from the very beginning, I emphasized the importance of personal development. In other words, I want you to commit every year to not just showing up and working your 40-hour week, but I want you to commit every year to grow in your skills and capability, knowing in general where we wanted to go, having a vision for what the company was going to be. And those, I would say 90% of the folks really committed to that.
Yeah.
And today hold positions of importance in management that they would have never thought probably in the beginning. But because I modeled and emphasized the importance of, if you want more money and more responsibility, you got to have more skills and more capability.
Hmm.
And so most of them did. Those that didn't jive with that, they took themselves out. I
Yeah.
didn't have to go to them and say, I'm sorry, you're a slug on the wall and you're not contributing, so I've got to replace you. Most of them just started feeling not a part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they chose to move on, which is great. I mean, for them, I
Yeah.
mean, why no one wants to work in an environment where you feel incapable and not interested in developing and growing with the company. So I actually, one of them in particular comes to mind. I encouraged him. It came down to the fact that I was either going to have to fire him or he was going to quit.
Hmm.
So I had a lengthy discussion with him to talk to him why it was in his best interest to resign.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
because if you'll resign, I will be one of your biggest advocates in a reference and referral. And
Yeah.
he'd been with us about 5 years. And
Hmm.
so it wasn't like he was going to be viewed as jumping. But I said, you're going to be able to count on me to really speak highly of your capabilities, if you knew. And plus, you don't want to get fired. I mean, no one wants to get fired.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and he said, let me think about it, and came back the next day and thanked me
Hmm.
and then submitted his resignation. He submitted a 2 week notice. I said, no, 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 no. You're going to go 30-day notice because I want to pay you for 30 days. And during then you'll have a little bit more time to look for a different job. And if you treat people like they are valuable,
Yeah.
then I think that to this day we've still got a good relationship. And that was 15, 20 years ago. So,
And I love that example too, because so many managers, no matter what level, you have a direct report that isn't the right fit, isn't working out, isn't performing at the level you need, to just have that open conversation. I mean, sometimes I coach managers, like, just go and ask them, how are they feeling about their role and their productivity and what they're producing, and
mhm,
where they feel like they're at. And so many times the managers come back and say, I can't believe it, like they admitted they're not happy, they don't like what they're working on. And then that opens up a conversation like, well, maybe this isn't the right place for you. Should we start talking about an exit strategy for you on your terms, right? And
mhm,
it gives the employee the power they need to make that decision, which, maybe people are listening like, well, why do I care about that? You've kept the person on for 2 extra weeks that you had to pay for. Well, you care about it for more than one reason. But one is, I mean, if you're going to really talk, nuts and bolts here, you don't have unemployment taxes rising as you terminate people. That's one area of cost savings that most people don't really look at, because most finance teams just put it in the cost of burden, and you're not seeing that rise up or down. But two, it's also your employer branding. It's, if you are a person that does value people, you're showing that, and news is going to get out. That person's going to talk. If they're going to talk to people internally, they're going to talk to people externally, and that's going to get out and be a more positive experience for those that are left, right? That are still working with you. Like, oh, wow, they really treat this person really well when it was time for them to go. And, I value that and I appreciate that. And I'm more now engaged and loyal to this team and this company, right? And, maybe there is somebody that person talks about that becomes an employee for you in the near future too.
That's
So
right.
yeah, it's I truly believe the way you interact with people, it comes back tenfold usually.
Yep. And
Yeah.
everything you do, especially as a leader or a founder in a leadership position, is in front of an audience,
Yeah.
and everybody's paying close attention.
Oh, especially in social media world. I mean, how many times do you see someone share an email nowadays or a
Yeah,
Slack or Teams or whatever, right? When if it's in written communication, you can guarantee if that employee is pissed off, social media is going to have a way of seeing it somehow, some way. So you
that's
got to be
right.
careful. Well, John, I feel like we could talk about this all day long, but as we wrap up today, any last final thoughts or tips or tricks you want to share with the audience?
Well, I think that my advice is to people that are working through issues like we've been talking about is to um, lean into it. And what I like to tell people or suggest to people is just start moving in the direction you want to be. And you're not going to necessarily be perfect in your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us are reluctant to make a decision or to go in a direction until we've got all the information and
Mm-hmm.
all the details, and I want to know everything about it, and I want to be perfect. Just don't do that. The learning is in the doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, out of today's meeting, decide that tomorrow morning you're going to get up an hour early and just spend some thought time with you. Get out a piece of paper and just start talking to yourself as your own advisor and thinking through the problems. And you'll find that clarity that can come from that, if you do it every morning now for a week, just commit to a week and do it every morning. But start tomorrow morning, and I think that you'll find if you'll do it for a week, you'll do it for the next year.
Mm. Okay, I
And
love that.
so
And if you're not a
start.
writer, like I'm not a writer, I don't like to write. You can do, video or not video, but audio, right? You can do your audio to
Sure.
text.
Yeah.
You can even use AI to help you, narrate off of things, or even just consume it. And then eventually you could have AI give you some analysis of what you've been thinking for the past couple of weeks. What are the
That's
themes?
right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Don. I love that.
You
I'm
bet.
definitely going to take that opportunity to make that change in my life and appreciate your time. I hope the audience
Sure.
has taken away a couple different tidbits. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Until then, have a great day. That's a wrap for today's episode of Scaling with People. If you got value from this conversation, do me a favor, share it with someone building something big. And hey, I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment, shoot me a message, or start a conversation. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the bold, unfiltered strategies we drop every week. I'm Guinevere Query, founder and CEO of Guide to HR, where we help high-growth companies scale smart with people-first strategies and AI-powered systems that don't just keep up, they lead. If you're building fast and want your HR to move faster, head to guidetohr.com and let's talk. And remember, scale isn't just about speed, it's about people. Until next time, have a great one.